Hi, good evening.
How are you?
Okay, good.
How's the audio quality?
That sounded good. I'm just getting everything set up, but it's sounding good. I'll send the link out now. We're just going to start the live stream off.
Okay.
You got Gary here as well. Hi, Kurt. And Co.
Hello?
In fact, I'll let Gary start us off with the introductions because it was Gary that put this together. And then we'll start. Gary's got some questions as well, which we'll go through, and I'll jump in as well. So over to you, Gary.
Okay. So very good evening to the Parallels team. Would you like to introduce yourselves?
Sure. This is Kurt Schmucker. I'm a product manager for Parallels Desktop here at Parallels. I've been here now for about 5 or 6 years. And we're trying to get my colleagues so they can hear and speak with needed. We're having a few audio hiccups.
As always, the joys of Skype.
Yes, we battle with Skype every week.
Yeah, I don't know why people like Skype so much. I don't use it hardly at all because of all these problems.
Yeah, we battled through. We've been doing this for about 10 years, and we still have a weekly fights with it.
Ah! So can you guys hear anything at all?
He can, and I'll be with you in a minute.
Okay. No.
Oh.
So neither of my colleagues are hearing you.
Okay, we can hear you okay.
They need to add us to the call.
Yeah.
Can you add 2 more people to the call? Is that possible?
Yeah, sure is. Yeah, if you want to put their ID in the chat window, the only thing with in a group call, you've got to be like accepted as a contact. I think it used to be anyway.
Okay, we'll try that. We'll put your IDs in the chat window, and he'll add you to the call.
Perfect.
We're trying that now.
Okay.
Let's do that. We'll start this again.
Yeah.
So we've tried to isolate the audio so you don't get all sorts of voices and so on, and you don't get feedback from our speakers and our Mac. We're all using headphones.
Okay.
Good move.
Yeah. Right. Let's see if I can do this. So there's just 2 on there, and that's right. Yeah.
That's correct. 2 more people.
Right. Let's see if we can do this.
And you're adding Andrew and Megan.
Okay. I'm not sure it might let us just do it, or it might not.
Okay.
We might.
They're also unsure they could pull it off. I'm repeating your stuff so they can hear you.
Okay. What I'm going to do is send a contact request, and then it'll come through that way.
Okay. You guys should be receiving a contact request.
Just a moment.
It's not sent yet. I'm just.
Not sent yet, but soon.
Yeah.
Typing is slow. I realize.
Yeah, because the dialog box doesn't come up. Let's. Okay, that's 1, I think. So have I sent the first one?
To Andrew?
Yeah. And now I can go back to the chat, copy this one.
Andrew has not received anything yet.
Okay, and now I've added the second one.
Does take a while sometimes.
Oh, the second one isn't coming up as in the directory, so I can't add that one.
Interesting. The second one is A. Galuka.
No, that was the first one I think I did.
Okay,
Yeah,
fine.
it was the MS.
You're not coming up in their directory, Megan.
Yeah.
Because I'm signing in at the moment. I'm just having an issue.
She's having some issues signing on, but we'll hopefully fix those in a second.
Yep, no problem.
Yeah, I think they've got to be in the. It can't find the second one. I think I might be able to do it another way. All right, so now I should. Right, I think I can add Andrew now to the call.
Okay.
Okay, so that should be added Andrew now.
Andrew, you should. Okay, Andrew's on, and you can hear things. Oh, that's great. Andrew's fine.
Okay, so it's just
Megan
now. So
just trying to get there now.
She's trying.
The Skype directory says it can't find a login name.
Skype never heard of you.
Yeah. So I can't do this add request.
Are Skype IDs capitalization sensitive?
Don't think so, no.
I would have thought not.
Stand by.
Okay, hold on for a second.
Okay.
Fast my little fingers can take me. Why do you want my birthday? I don't care.
Shoe size.
I had a Skype account using my Parallels ID, and somehow I screwed up the password. And despite a number of attempts to fix things, even calling Microsoft tech support, I got nowhere. And I just had to consider that to be a dead account. And for you guys, I set up a new one, and I'll probably just throw it away afterwards.
For a Skype account. I think that's a good idea, actually.
That's a good idea. Yeah. It gets even more complicated when you're linked up with your Microsoft account, which is
Exactly right. That's what happened to me, I think.
Yeah, and then I think each week, Gary and our other host, Jason, who's not on the call this week, is we spend 5 minutes making sure we're calling the right accounts.
It's always a challenge. And we're both Microsoft MVPs. You'd think we know how to do it.
Yeah, but not every Microsoft MVP knows everything about every product.
No, true.
I was the Microsoft person sort of in charge of the Mac MVPs when I was there. And what a great group of people. But even they realize, I know PowerPoint, I know Word, I know this, but I don't know everything.
Yeah. Right, I'll try that second account you sent. Oh, that's got, yeah, I've got one there. So it's brought up two. There's a Skype for Business, Megan Parallels, and there's a Megan Spur account.
He's seeing two accounts for you.
Megan at parallels.com.
Megan at parallels.com.
Right. Okay, I've got that.
Use that one.
So onto contacts. So that'll send a contact request.
Contact request should be coming to you.
Fantastic.
Still waiting. Haven't seen it yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Takes-
Yeah. I'll send an IM as well, just to.
And you should get an IM also.
Oh, messaging unavailable.
Try the other account, because that might be.
I think it's trying to use a Skype for Business account. So let me try. Yeah, let's try this other one.
They're trying the other account now.
It should still be the Megan at Parallels.com. I think it'll just.
One of them is labeled Skype for Business, so I think it's not that.
Yeah, it won't usually work to Skype to Business, so it should be.
So if it's not the right Megan, I'll be sending some.
I don't think it'll be a different person.
let's add to
So apparently Skype Business and Skype Commercial are different and
Yeah.
they're really
It's
weird.
really different,
yeah,
yes.
they're two
Yeah.
different. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, I've sent that request through.
Another request has gone through.
Are they on Skype Business or Skype?
It's
Are you guys on
regular Skype? Yeah.
Regular
Here we
Skype.
go.
Okay,
see.
received.
Okay, if I can just add me to the call, then I'm good.
Right.
There-
Right. Got you. I can add you to that call. Right. Let's try this. It won't let me add you to the call.
They won't let them add you to the call.
Yeah, not yet. Maybe the request is just still
Maybe
coming
it's
through.
like, yeah, we'll see. They're trying.
Yeah, it's not on my other contacts that I've got the option to add a call, but not on Megan. So maybe it's just still
Waiting for the acceptance.
Yeah.
You've accepted the contact request?
Mhm.
He hasn't gotten the acceptance back, so we can't add you.
Gotcha.
So we're dealing with Skype delays.
Which is not uncommon.
Okay.
I'll send a text message via the text. So sometimes we'll see whether that's
He's still trying to contact you through his various
right.
mechanisms.
So that should work now. Still not let me do it.
Yeah, for the account, they said that they couldn't find it.
Invite to group call. There we go. Let's try that. It's showing up now.
They just found an invite to group call button.
Yay!
Yeah.
And it looks like she got it. It's still ringing. Why there's only one.
Nope, you're busy.
It's not completely our fault.
Definitely not your fault.
No worries. Right. Well, I'll send the link out now so people can see we're live.
Okay.
But like I said, most people catch up on the podcast anyway.
Got it. I understand. I had the same experience.
Yep.
Okay, so Gary, you can do the intro again.
Should we do this again? So, very good evening to the good people from Parallels. Would you like to introduce yourselves?
So my name is Kurt Schmucker. I'm the product manager for Parallels Desktop. I've been here at Parallels working on Parallels Desktop now for about 5 or 6 years. And I have 2 other Parallels colleagues with me, and they are?
They are unmuting their microphone.
You can just speak in here. Oh, yeah.
We can hear.
My
Megan
name
quite
is
well.
Megan. Oh, so sorry. Yeah. My name is Megan Spur. I'm the social media manager and community manager for Parallels.com.
And my name is Andrew. I'm a social media manager for Parallel Support.
Perfect. So I thought we'd start off by just talking a little bit through the new version of Parallels. So Kurt, I don't know if you wanted to take us through what's new in the latest version, and also give us what the version number is as well.
So we just released a few weeks ago Parallels Desktop 12. So Parallels Desktop has been around now for over a decade, and we're really proud of the things we've done in Parallels Desktop 12. As always, in every release, we try to increase the speed, and we've done that in several ways. One way, for example, is we have added a new option in Parallels Desktop 12 to always keep Windows in the background. And it's really amazing how much faster apps launch, Windows launches, and so on when you turn that option on. It doesn't use up RAM, it doesn't use up processor cycles, and it's a really good option for people who are using Windows 10. Other features include things like the ability to buy Windows within Parallels. We found that brand new users of Parallels Desktop, often their first task is setting up a new virtual machine with Windows, And that's actually a problem with them. We've had people say to us, I looked in the Apple Store and I couldn't find the box for Windows 10 on the shelf. And that's probably never going to happen. So we worked together with Microsoft so you can, inside Parallels Desktop, initiate a purchase, a download, and installation of Windows 10 very easily. And we hope that solves the problem for new users.
That's a really just make this clear for me then. So I've got my Mac and I want to run Windows. So I go and get Parallels through the store, and like you said, then the first challenge often is like, how do you get Windows? So what you're saying, you can pull an image down and buy it from within Parallels.
When you first install Parallels Desktop on your Mac, Parallels Desktop 12, if you have no virtual machines, it automatically comes up with the dialog for creating a virtual machine. And the first big button on that dialog is Buy Windows 10 from Microsoft. If you poke that button and go through the dialog, you will log on to Microsoft Store. You pick the version of Windows 10 you want, Home or Pro, and then it'll automatically take you to the store with your default browser with that particular version of Windows already in your cart, ready for you to put your credit card in and buy it.
Right.
Now, it's a big download. So the installation file for Windows 10, called an ISO, is about 4.5 gigs. So that might take a while to download. But when you do, afterwards, the installation of Windows 10 happens without your intervention. So it happens all automatically. It's really slick.
Right, yeah.
I did it just 2 weeks ago to test it. And at my home, the whole procedure took about 45 minutes. So that was great.
Yeah, well, that's really good, yeah.
We're really hopeful for that. And we thank Microsoft for working together with us to make this happen and integrate so well in Parallels Desktop.
Yeah, because it's surprising Microsoft don't actually make it that simple for purchasing Windows really sometimes. So
it was the work of both teams, both Parallels and Microsoft, but they were happy to do so, and we were happy to have their help. And we're looking forward to even more integration in that area in the future. But it's pretty good now.
Okay, so you set up. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, so you set up Windows 10, and you're ready to go. There are a number of other features that are nice. As I mentioned before, Windows 10, you can say, always keep Windows running in the background. And that dramatically decreases the amount of time to launch Windows 10 or to launch an app for Windows 10. It's a Windows 10 only feature, unfortunately, but it's still very useful to users. Another thing we did in Parallels Desktop 12 is bundle with Parallels Desktop another application. And that application is called Parallels Toolbox. And what it is a set of 20 tools that do a number of single-purpose tasks for Mac users. For example, take a screenshot, record a video from your screen, download a video from YouTube. Things that the Mac can do, but not everyone remembers the key command for that particular option. For example, many Mac users know how to take a screenshot of the whole screen. And they might know that there's a screenshot command to just take a screenshot of a window, but they don't remember the key combination. So now we have that in the Mac menu bar, an icon that is the Parallels Toolbox, and there are a bunch of tools there, 20 tools in fact, and they do a number of these tasks for you really simply. They're all single purpose. There are almost no options to set. So you just use the tool and get on with your work. And the reception so far, it's pretty new. The reception's been extremely positive.
Yeah, I must admit, I love those tools, especially like the audio and video conversion ones you threw in there, because they're very useful for me for what I do.
I'll tell you the one that's most popular here, and that is do a screen recording. I've been getting recordings, little movies from all the people at Parallels now. Kurt, here's a bug I found in Office. Please tell your friends at Microsoft about that. Kurt, here's something that I want to suggest for Sierra that can be fixed or changed. Here's a movie about that. Kurt, here's a video of how you do something in Parallels Desktop now. It could be simpler if you did this. So that's a very, very popular option. And I'm getting movies from all over the company now.
So the tools are bundled with the Power Desktop, but you can also get them separately as well?
That is correct. So that the response was so positive internally to the test here that we decided to make them available for separate purchase for those Mac users who don't have a need for Windows and therefore wouldn't be customers of Parallels Desktop. So the tools are available for separate purchase, or they're bundled with every edition of Parallels Desktop.
And it doesn't just stop with the ones you've currently got. You're developing new ones all the time, from what I understand.
The current plan is that Parallels Desktop is available. One of the ways it's available is by subscription. If you have a Parallels Desktop subscription, as we develop new tools for the Toolbox, you'll automatically get those. If you have a perpetual license for Parallels Desktop, you'll get the 20 tools we have now, and when you buy a new version of Parallels, you'll get the new tools at that time.
Right.
So we wanted to make it really clear that people who have the subscription get some value during the year, and that's why the new tools that we're adding will be available to subscribers. The engineering team has a list of about 100 tools on their list right now to do, and so they did the first 20 for our launch, and they're hoping to do a few each quarter to add to the pile.
Excellent.
So we also had some success for gamers in a couple areas. You know, gaming is a really difficult area for a virtualization app like Parallels Desktop, because games use the most hardware, the latest stuff, and so on. So we had two successes to tell you about. The first one is, in Windows 10, Microsoft ships an app called Xbox, or Xbox.app, that allows you to remotely connect to an Xbox One and play the game on your Windows 10 PC. So we got a Xbox One for the engineering team, and we said, please make this app work as best as possible. And it works really well. You can take an Xbox controller, plug it into your Mac either wirelessly or with a USB wire or cable, and then connect to your Xbox One and play the game. There are no compatibility issues and no performance issues because the game is running on the Xbox, and therefore it's going to grow on just fine. You have to be, of course, on the same network, and in fact, the same subnet. You can't do it like if you were at school, you couldn't connect to your home Xbox. It doesn't work that way. And so the only variable you have to control is the network speed. And so, for example, when I wanted to do something, I made sure that the network was relatively quiet. Nobody in my home was downloading big movies or things like this. They can still be watching TV on the TV that the Xbox is normally connected to. Doesn't interfere with that at all. And it's a really nice option for users who can now connect to their Xbox One and play Xbox games on their Mac screen.
Yeah, that's a nice feature. That I mean, I've used it on a Surface and the app itself, and yeah, depending if you get some good bandwidth, then it's actually pretty good, and you can even I've played the driving games, and it works quite well. So yeah, nice option to be able to have it on your Mac.
I feel the same way. It was a really nice thing to do. We were happy to make it happen, and we know that people want to play games on their Mac that aren't available for the Mac normally, and so this is one sort of general purpose solution. Another single purpose success was we had some of our users contact us about the new game from Blizzard, Overwatch. And they said, it runs pretty well, but there are a few glitches. Why don't you contact Blizzard and see if your two engineering teams can work out the issues so Parallels Desktop can play this game a little bit better. And we did contact them. They were happy to talk to us. And we worked out the issues between our two engineering teams. And Overwatch plays quite well in Parallels Desktop in a Windows 10 virtual machine.
That's quite impressive to be able to do that.
Overwatch is a really popular game. They sold 15 million copies in their first month or so. It was really kind of funny getting the reports from our early users was that they said it played pretty well, but weirdly enough, none of the characters had any hair. So they said, try and find out how they're doing the hair. And Blizzard was happy to talk with our engineers. And between the two of them, they figured out what we had to change in Parallels Desktop, and we did. We also figured out the optimal settings to set both the Overwatch game and Parallels Desktop to get the best playing experience. Now, I want to issue one caution. So games take a lot of hardware. So if you've got a 5-year-old MacBook Air with a very small amount of memory, you're not going to get really great performance on any kind of game. I happen to have a 4-year-old MacBook Pro, and I get fine performance. If you had a later machine with a better graphics card and with more CPU power, it's going to do great. But this is not magic. Hardware takes hardware, and so you have to have a certain amount of oomph behind any kind of game.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same goes. I wouldn't try and run that game you mentioned. You know, even on my Surface Pro 4, it would struggle. You know, with the higher settings. So yeah, I understand that.
And so, continuing on with new features in Parallels Desktop 12, we were very fortunate to be able to realize that a Microsoft feature called Ink, we can get some aspects of that to work in Parallels Desktop 12. Now, I can't say that Ink is a feature of Parallels Desktop 12, but it's a new use of Parallels Desktop. Ink is an ability to take a stylus or with your finger on a touch panel and annotate a document or add new content to a document. It's really very natural, and Microsoft was right to push this as part of their natural interfaces initiative, and it's great. It's in Office, it's in Windows 10 first anniversary update, and we've been able to get a number of those scenarios to work in Parallels Desktop 12. And we wrote about it on our blog and gave users the setup they need to do to make that happen. And I use Ink with my Apple Pencil and my iPad Pro and Parallels Desktop in Office 2016, and I love it. It's really great.
So that's a good point, actually, because using your iPad to access your Mac Parallels, that's using Parallels remote access, is that right?
Unfortunately, no. So what I had to do to make this work is the following. I wanted to use my Apple Pencil. I wanted to write on something. I had my iPad. I needed an app that sent the raw stroking data, the raw ink data, to the Mac. And Parallels Access doesn't do that. It interprets that your stuff, which is usually what most people want. So I found an app on the App Store called AstroPad, and all that app does, I don't mean to make that light of that. It does just one task really well, which is send your raw stroking data to the Mac. And then the Mac, we were able to get that data into Parallels Desktop and get it into Office.
Excellent.
So for example, I can review a PowerPoint deck and write on it with my Apple Pencil and send those annotated deck back to the author. And it turns out to be a really wonderful way to review a document and send comments back to somebody. And I just love it. I use it all the time now.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So one of the other things I quite like is that you've made backup a lot easier with this new version as well.
Backup has been a problem for virtual machines since day one. And the reason for that is virtual machines are typically rather large files, somewhere between 20, 40, even 100 gigabytes. And every time you launch the virtual machine, that file changes. It may only change in a little way, but all backup programs just look at the modification date and send the file to the backup server. So that means, like in the case of Time Machine, for example, the default is to back up every hour. So if I had a 100 gigabyte virtual machine, which I do, every hour I'm running 100 gigabytes in my backup store. That, I don't care how big your server is, that's going to fill up that server really, really quick.
Indeed.
And so it's such an issue that we actually added a few years ago an option in Parallels Desktop to not back up with Time Machine. And it just killed us to do that, but we had no other solution. So we worked with a backup vendor, Acronis, to do incremental backup of virtual machines. So between Acronis and Parallels Desktop, they work out the details of the internals of the virtual machine and only back up the things they've changed. And this is a big advantage for users now. So if you don't install some huge app like Office or something, typically the incremental change is going to be small. And so that small backup happens only incrementally. And Acronis is really happy about this. They actually we're together with Parallels, they're giving each user a year subscription to Acronis TrueImage and a 0.5 terabyte of storage on the Acronis cloud to do your backups. So that means that a user would be able to much more easily and much more quickly back up their virtual machines. And this is really great. I had one of a Mac at home fail, and the disk failed, and I lost a virtual machine. It happened to be my biggest virtual machine. I was really bummed. And of course, I was supposed to do backups, but you had to do them manually. Of course, I had forgotten for a while. So I feel the pain of users who want to do backups, know that backups are useful, but they're just so hard to manage before. And with this new solution, the backup process is easy, it's quick, and it doesn't take up much space. So that's a really great solution for users.
And I've tried this with my, I think it's about 128 gig boot camp partition, and it takes a while to do the first backup, but then it's really quick to do the incrementals.
Because the first one's got to back up everything, and
Indeed,
the incrementals have to be small. The engineering team did some tests, and if you only did a small amount of work in a virtual machine, the backup might take as little as 5 or 6 minutes.
Yeah, that's what I'm finding.
Really great. Incremental backup.
Yeah, that's and I'm usually finding that it's running at the end of the day before I shut down, and it's done within 10 minutes. So it's really good. Yeah, very
That's
impressed.
fantastic. I'm happy to hear that you had that experience.
Yeah.
We know users need this, and people who've been bitten by a hardware failure or other things like this, you realize how important backups are. And if you rely on your Mac or your virtual machines for work stuff, you've got to do backups.
Yep. Excellent. So we've got a few users' questions. I'm not necessarily expecting you to be able to answer these straight off the top of your head, but obviously we can always get back to people and feedback perhaps in next week's show. So I just wanted to go through these. So the first one is one guy called Stephen, who listens to the show. He says, and I've actually heard this from a couple of people, so it's more of a general question. I've recently upgraded data to new Parallels, and my Windows 10 start button has stopped working. It was working before the upgrade. Any thoughts? So I guess this is the button's actually not, when they click it, the menu's not popping up.
So you can add me to the list of users who've experienced this issue. It happened to me about 2-3 months ago or so. So it's not specific to an upgrade from Parallels desktop earlier version to 12. It's actually a Windows bug, and Microsoft is working on it. We hope they're working on it really right now as we speak. But it is there, and once you hit this bug, you really have a problem. It's because your user profile got corrupted. Right. So we wrote a KB article, and on our website, it's KB article 123375, and it gives you a workaround to how to fix this issue in Windows until Microsoft issues a bug fix. I've used it, and the process worked for me. And I'm not surprised that you had several callers who have had this issue, because some people have experienced it. We've heard a lot about it from our support team. So that's why we published that article. I feel their pain. It happened to me too, but we have our workaround until there's a bug fix in Windows 10.
Okay. The next one's from Paul, who's a developer. He says, I need to develop for Windows Phone, but it's telling me I can't run an emulator within an emulator. And I know the answer to this one, but I thought I'd let you explain it, because there's quite a few options for emulation within Parallels.
It's interesting. This is an advanced feature. So running an emulator inside an emulator is a pretty weird thing to do. I've done it, but I'm strange. The feature has a name. It's called nested virtualization. So that means inside a virtual machine, like say example, you're in Windows 10, you want to run another application that itself uses virtualization to do something. And the Windows Phone emulator is a great example of that, because the Windows Phone emulator uses Hyper-V, Microsoft's virtualization technology. So the good news is we have an answer for that user. So there's an option in the Pro version of Parallels Desktop 12 that allows you to have nested virtualization. You turn that option on, and everything's going to work then. I actually did a video with the Microsoft developer team to show how to do this, because people wanted to use Visual Studio to do development for Windows phones using Parallels Desktop. So if you look on the Microsoft website and go to their sub-site called Channel 9, which is their developer portal, there is an article and a video just showing how this is used, showing how it's set up. And the article was published quite some time ago because we added nested virtualization a while ago as a option. It was published on the 24th of January, 2013. And the full title of the article is Parallels Using Visual Studio on a Mac. And we'll provide the links to you guys. You can send out to your users, however you normally do that.
Yeah, we'll add those to the show notes. That'll be perfect. So the next one I've got, and I think this is a little bit vague to probably answer, but Mark, who's another listener, said, I really love Parallels, but since upgrading to Windows 10, it seems really slow, and I get the beach ball of death a lot. Any thoughts? We
get this question a lot, and there's no one answer for all users. But I'll tell you the most common answer. When somebody calls us and says, hey, Windows has gotten slow lately, what can I do? And we ask them, did you recently change the amount of memory given to the virtual machine? And they go, yeah, I wanted Windows to run really fast, so I gave it lots of RAM. And that seems like a logical thing to do. Unfortunately, it's the worst thing to do. Because the Mac has only so much memory. Let's suppose the Mac had 10 gigabytes of RAM. If you give 7 to Windows, that leaves only 3 for the Mac. If the Mac is starved for memory, everything is going to be slow. Photoshop is going to be slow. Office is going to be slow. Parallels Desktop is going to be slow. So if you have a problem in that area and you've just recently changed the amount of RAM given to Windows, that's probably the root cause. So we add. Go ahead. We added in parallel.
I was just going to mention, because when you upgrade to Windows 10, doesn't it ask for more memory for that during that process? Yeah. So I wonder if people have left it with that extra memory set.
That's exactly what happens a lot of the time. It happened to me, and I think I'm a professional at using Parallels Desktop, and I forgot to put the memory back down. So if that's the case, if you've recently changed the amount of memory for the upgrade or just in general, we added a button in the VM configuration dialog that says use defaults. Just poke that button, it'll go back to the defaults for memory, and almost always that will increase the performance of Windows. Now, that may not be the case for this particular user, so we have a KB article on advanced performance troubleshooting that will help them, walk them through a way of looking at what issues that could be causing their VM to be slow. And that KB is 112091, and we'll send you an exact link for you to put in the show notes.
Brilliant.
But this is a very common question. I've given you the most common answer. I hope that helps that listener.
I must admit, I actually came across that problem myself with forgetting to put the memory back after upgrading. So
it's very common. That's why we tell them to people not to do it. But I thought I know better, so I'm going to do it. And then sure enough, I forgot to set it back. So it's not unusual at all. And so, of course, an OS upgrade is going to be one of the most stressful things for an operating system. So increasing the amount of memory is actually a smart thing to do then. Forgetting to set it back is a very common issue.
I can understand that. And I think we've actually answered Mark's next question, which is what is the best way to back up my Windows VM? Because obviously, what we spoke about earlier about the new backup stuff in there, and that very generous offer on the year's backup. So the next one is from Wayne, and he's actually come across a problem I also would quite like an answer to. He says, I've got a physical boot camp partition, which he runs in Parallels and is using the latest version of Parallels. Is there any way to convert this to a VM so I can store it on an external drive?
And the answer is yes, there is. So if you've already gone to the trouble of installing Boot Camp on your Mac, that's great. We can use that installation of Windows from within Parallels Desktop. There are 2 ways we can use it. We can either point to that partition, which is great, and that means you only have 1 copy of Windows. You have one copy of Windows to patch, so on. But that comes with certain restrictions. So as you know, Parallels Desktop will dynamically change the size of the virtual hard drive as it needs to.
Yep.
But it can't do it in that case because it's pointing at a hard partition on the drive.
Yep.
So that's an example. So the other way you can take advantage of a boot camp partition is basically you can copy that copy of Windows into a virtual machine. So you're now basically making a virtual machine by pointing to that boot camp partition and sucking it all up into your VM. Now, that has advantages and disadvantages. You now have 2 copies of Windows, which maybe is an issue for you. But you can take full advantage of all the features that are in Parallels Desktop when you do that. In particular, you could move that VM to an external hard drive. Of course, Parallels Desktop and virtual machines and operating systems like Windows running on the Mac need as fast a disk as you have. So if you put that on a really, really slow drive, you're going to have a problem. If you can import that copy of Windows into a virtual machine and put that virtual machine on a SSD drive, then you're going to be doing really well. Especially if it's a Thunderbolt SSD drive, I do that. And it's a great way for me to take VMs that I don't use all the time and move them onto secondary storage. And I would suggest that. If you're just pointing at the partition of Boot Camp, you of course can't move it. You have to import it into a virtual machine. And now you basically have 2 copies of Windows. If you find that that virtual machine gives you everything you need that you used to use Boot Camp before, then you can use the Boot Camp Assistant to erase that partition on your Mac drive and gain back a bunch of space. Think that answers your question?
Yeah, I think so. So if you've already got that point to the current partition, do you run the create new VM wizard to actually create?
So if you open up the new VM wizard in Parallels Desktop, I mentioned earlier the very first big button is to buy Windows 10 from Microsoft. The last big button is to import Boot Camp or use your Boot Camp partition. And then you'll get 2 choices, either point at or import.
Okay.
Just a question on that. So if you do the point at, then that gives you then the option to either just use Boot Camp, go straight into it, or to run it as a virtual machine within Mac OS.
Correct. You can actually go back and forth, which is what I've done.
And in terms of performance, is there much difference when you're going against sort of bare system using Boot Camp as opposed to the virtual machine? I guess you're giving away a little bit for the Mac OS.
It's interesting. If you had asked me this question 2 years ago, I would have said, well, of course, if you're not running the Mac OS, you're going directly to that Boot Camp, and that's running right off the hardware, it's going to be faster. But that isn't always the case now, which is very surprising. It actually can be the case sometimes that running that version of Windows in a virtual machine in Parallels Desktop can actually be faster, noticeably faster than running it in Boot Camp.
Right.
It's very, very weird, very surprising, but it's definitely true. And we've measured it.
Yeah, so I guess for most people then, it's better just to have the virtual machine manage it, and really you probably wouldn't necessarily need to use the direct booting option. I
think the performance of virtual machines in Parallels Desktop now, and the flexibility and the integration when you have 2 OSs running at the same time, even if it was slightly faster in Boot Camp, it probably isn't enough to make a big difference for you.
Yeah, and I should say as well, just in case anybody's listening that hasn't actually played with this, you can actually see when you're using the apps in Parallels, you're actually using them in their own window, aren't they? Rather, you don't have to have them all inside the VM window of the Windows 10 OS.
You're raising a very, very good point. We have a number of UI options for you when you're running Windows applications in Parallels Desktop. I, for one, like the option to having Windows in a window on the Mac and the applications are all contained in it. I like a boundary between my Mac experience and my Windows experience. That's just me. The majority of users actually use what we call coherence, which means the Windows desktop disappears and the Windows apps run on the Mac desktop as if they were just funny looking Mac apps, and they just work that way. In that case, your only boundary for the window is the size of your Mac screen. That's very, very common. Users who've just recently moved to the Mac from Windows actually like to see just the normal Windows experience and nothing else. So we have an option called full screen. So when you run Windows Virtual Machine in full screen mode, you don't see the Mac at all, and just looks like a Windows machine, a very stylish, handsome looking Windows machine, but a Windows machine, and you can use it that way. So full screen, windowed, and coherence are the most commonly used view options for Parallels Desktop, and you might even change from one to the other as your experience in Mac or experience in Windows changes, but they're all available for you anytime. You can switch between them.
Right, excellent.
And that new Windows 10 feature you mentioned about having it running in background, that really helps when you're running in Coherence as well, doesn't it, for launching those apps?
It may whether you're running in Coherence or in windowed mode or full screen mode even, it doesn't make it. It helps in performance a lot. So you launch a Windows 10 app and it launches within a couple of seconds. It's really impressive. Mm-hmm. The only thing you might notice differently is when you boot your Mac, if you have that option turned on, we actually boot Windows during the booting process of the Mac. So the Mac boot process might take a couple of seconds longer. But other than that, you won't notice anything at all.
I must admit, I've been using that all the time, and it has been really impressive compared to the previous version.
I'm happy to hear that. I also feel it's really nice. So I've turned it on for my Windows 10 virtual machines also, because the speed improvement is just so great. Another speed improvement we give you, not by making Windows run faster, but by giving you time back that you otherwise lost. And so I'm talking about the time you lose when there's a Windows update. I don't know
what we were
about
talking
you.
about at the beginning. That's how I was getting Gary on the call, actually.
I don't know about you, but whenever I have a really tight deadline coming up, I've got to get something done in the next 2 hours, there always seems to be a giant Windows update at that very time. And then, of course, you got to download it, you got to install it, you got to reboot Windows. And during all that time, most of my time for my deadline has been used up. So we added a feature in Parallels Desktop 12 for you to be able to schedule Windows updates at night, for example. So you could say, for example, I want my Windows virtual machine to connect to the Microsoft servers every night at 2 a.m. And then there's an update, download it, install it, and reboot Windows. And then when I get up at 6 a.m., Windows is ready for me. So it's not that it's actually running faster, but I'm getting more time back. So it's kind of a performance-related thing. It really is nice. And you can do this, like I said, it's a Windows 10 only feature, but it really does make things better for you. And you just always have Windows patched.
It's really good. I must admit, I felt that was a feature they should build into Windows 10.
Understood.
So we've got one final question, user question, unless Ian's got any more than I've got here. Yep. So this is from Wayne again, and I'm not sure if this is possible. He asks, is there any way to resize a physical boot camp position within Parallels?
So I need to rephrase this question a little bit, because so if you're pointing at a boot camp partition from a virtual machine, Parallels can't control the size of the boot camp partition. You have to do that on the Mac with the boot camp assistant.
Yep.
And I'll be very frank with you. Sometimes a request up to increase the size will work, and sometimes it won't. And that's a Mac thing. And the reason is the following. Boot camp requires, on a rotational drive, a hard disk, a contiguous block of space to install Windows. So when your Mac is new, like it's fresh out of the box, getting a 20 or 30 or 40 gig partition of contiguous space on the hard drive is very easy. You've been using your Mac now for a month or two, probably finding a contiguous block like that is going to be really hard. And so I've tried to set up boot camp for people who've asked me for help on that. And you get the dialogue that says, I'm sorry, I can't set up a boot camp partition. Please reformat your hard drive and try again.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a pretty onerous thing to do. Reformatting your hard drive means erasing everything. So I suspect that resizing a boot camp partition, making it larger, is going to be just as difficult when you've used your Mac for for a number of months.
Yeah.
Probably decreasing it might be possible. I'm not sure. I haven't done that. Now, what I have not also done is see if that same constraint applies to SSD-based Macs. So I don't know if contiguous makes any sense for an SSD or not. I have a friend on the boot camp team at Apple. I've asked him about this. I haven't gotten an answer back yet. So if you're on a hard drive, for sure, that makes a difference. You can't resize a boot camp partition from within Parallels. Parallels have no control over that. You have to use the boot camp assistant on the Mac, and whether it's going to succeed or it's going to tell you to reformat your hard drive, I can't predict. I wish I had a better answer for you. We can't control everything on the Mac.
No, understood. So, but just taking the other option where we've copied that VM, the boot camp server VM, or actually any version of Windows, you've got some really nice features in terms of actually managing disk size, haven't you?
Exactly right. So in the last couple of releases of Parallels, it's always been the case that Parallels Desktop will have a maximum size for a particular virtual machine's hard drive, but the actual amount of space it takes will often be less than that, and it will grow as you need. You add applications, as you create data and so on. That virtual hard drive will grow in size, and that's great. We've had now for several releases the option to be able to manually shrink it, get rid of unused space. And the problem is you had to do it manually, and users forget to do it. And we really saw this come to a head when people began moving to SSD Macs, because they typically had the smaller amount of space.
Yep.
So we invested the engineering time to have virtual hard drives both grow and shrink automatically as needed. And that's really great. So now your Windows virtual machine doesn't take up any more room ever than it absolutely needs. And I've done tests myself where I would drop like a 5 or 6 gig file into Windows, and then you'll see the virtual hard drive increase in size, and then delete it. And over the next few seconds, the virtual hard drive will shrink back to its original size. And that's so cool. Because if you are limited to hard drive space, as many people are, Parallels Desktop is not going to be the culprit for using up more space than it really needs. And that's great. Most users, like 85% of users, have exactly one virtual machine. So it's not as big a problem for them as it is for me. I have like 14. So I have a large number of virtual machines. And if they were each taking an extra gig of space unneeded, that's like 14 gigs on my drive. That's a lot of space.
Yep.
So we're really happy to have added that ability for a drive to grow and shrink automatically without your involvement, and you hardly notice it at all except for the disk size changing.
I love that feature. Again, I'm similar to you. I have many VMs on mine. So
you and I are both weird users.
Indeed. But that is brilliant. But I can also see how it is brilliant for just a normal user as well, particularly with the SSD.
If you're on a MacBook Air, but it has a limited amount of space on the SSD, an extra gig of space or something is very precious.
Yeah.
And so we're giving you that back easily, almost no performance hit. And real pleased to have done that. Did that, I think, 2 releases ago.
Yeah. So it kind of almost makes sense to take your physical boot camp, move it to Costas VM just to gain that extra space.
It really does, because a boot camp partition is going to always be fixed in size until you would manually do something to it. So if you have a 160 gig boot camp partition. Even if Windows is only taking up 40, it's still taking up 160 on your drive.
Yep.
So I was able to do that by myself. I imported my boot camp partition into a virtual machine. I got rid of the boot camp partition, and I gained a lot of space back.
Yeah, that's good.
That's been, Kurt, this has been absolutely brilliant. We covered a lot of ground here. What's the best way for people to follow the news on Parallels? Is it through the website, or have you got social media?
Both of those are very good. So we have a very active social media team, both on Twitter and on Facebook. We have a blog on our website that often has technical topics and also other interesting topics related to Parallels products. And those are both good ways to keep in contact with us. And of course, you can always send an email to the support team if you're having a particularly difficult time dealing with something, and they'll get back to you. And that's a good way to keep in touch with us also.
Brilliant.
Well, as Gary said, it's been absolutely fascinating, and I think I have to dust my old MacBook Air off now.
So for using one virtual machine, 4 gigabyte MacBook Air is a fine solution.
Yeah.
You aren't going to put your 12 or 15 virtual machines on that, but you're able to put one. And remember, you can install as many virtual machines in Parallels Desktop as you have space on your hard drive. You can run as many simultaneously as you have RAM for. So I will often run 2 or 3 virtual machines at the same time. On a dare from our web team here at Parallels, I actually ran 10 copies of Internet Explorer in 10 different virtual machines at the same time. It was a crazy thing to do. My screen was really, really crowded. A normal person would look at that and go, "Oh, that's the weirdest thing I ever saw." And the web teams went, "Whoa, that's so cool." And they were real happy. And I made a screenshot for them. So it is possible to do that if you have enough RAM.
Excellent. Well, Gary, I'll let you wrap up then.
Okay, so well, again, thank you ever so much for taking the time to speak to us, Kurt. That's been absolutely brilliant. Thanks for the Andrew and Megan in the background keeping track of all this. It's been really good to have you on the show. And obviously, if we get any follow-up questions, we'll send them in your direction, and hopefully you can answer those. We can answer those on future shows. But yes, brilliant. Thank you again for your time.
Yeah, thank
Happy
you very
to do
much.
so, and we'll send you links for the notes on the podcast.
Brilliant.
Excellent. Thanks very much. That was really good. So we'll let you get back to wherever you're doing now, but really do appreciate that. And I'll send the link once the stream is live. Once the podcast
Great.
live.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
Brilliant. Thanks again.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Right.
Bye.
Right. I shall start. In fact, I'll call you back, Gary, to finish off.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, bye.
Bye. Thanks again. Hello. Right. That was really good.
That was really good. That was really interesting. That and yeah, really, especially for developers like you, where you need to have access to both OSs, it's a really good solution. And or even if it's just you like the Mac hardware and but need still want to use Windows 10, it's a great solution.
Well,
we didn't mention that you can run other OSs as well.
Yeah, you can do. So you can even run Mac OSs in VMs, which is quite an interesting thing. But the other great thing about that is if you're just a normal user, there's lots of cheap MacBook Airs out there at the moment, the last generation ones. So you can make a really good Ultrabook type PC.
Yeah.
And running in full screen mode, it's like you're running Windows.
Yeah, and so you could use Boot Camp if you want, but it seems that's probably not necessary. You can have almost the best of both worlds with both OSs.
Yeah, indeed.
Well, that was really, really good. Really enjoyed that. So that was a kind of replace to our normal scheduled show. And I think next week I'm at the IBC in Amsterdam, so I shall probably have some content from there, but not for the live show. So I think it might be you and Jason hosting next week, and I'll either drop something in and we'll all get back together the week after.
That sounds like a good plan. And
Yeah.
of course, I was at IFA last week, so I just wanted to mention one thing which I sort of saw at IFA because I really, really liked it, which was the small desktop PC, which I thought would be perfect for our listeners.
Oh yeah, I've seen a couple of those. Is this a little one you could use as a media client?
Well, this is actually a full-blown desktop PC, but it looks like a phone.
Excellent.
So it's from a company called Ockle. They've actually done a fundraising thing of, I can't remember which one of the many online fundraising things they use, but to do a previous version of this. But they're actually now working on a new version. And the concept behind this is it's about the same size as a phone. It's got a touch screen, and it's got all the ports you could possibly use. And I reckon it makes a brilliant media PC.
Oh, that's definitely something we can talk about. Yeah,
under TVs and stuff. So what I've so as a feed for this, that we might actually have them on the show in a few weeks' time. Once they've got their launch together. So because at the moment they're a bit vague on specs and things. So once they've pinned that down, they've said they'll hope to come on the show and tell us all about it.
Excellent. Oh, we'll look forward to that. So just give us your Twitter account.
I'm at Gary WMA.
And Jason is at Database Jace if you want to follow him. Like I said, we'll be back next week, but without me probably, and then all three of us back the week after, and we can talk about all the build news that's happened in the meantime, because we did have a new build, but we can talk about that in a couple of weeks. So until then, we'll see you on the podcast on Twitter at ISDixon.
Brilliant. Take care.
Excellent. Great stuff.